In a rapidly evolving political landscape, the pressure is mounting on key figures as they navigate their party affiliations and ambitions. As the 2026 elections loom, prominent players are making bold moves signaling shifts that could have significant implications for the Democratic Party and beyond. Former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre recently announced her departure from the Democratic Party to embrace an independent status, a decision that she articulates in her forthcoming book, Independent: A Look Inside a Broken White House Outside the Party Lines. Set for release on October 21, the book aims to challenge the rigidity of party politics, advocating for a more fluid identity that transcends traditional boundaries. Jean-Pierre didn't come to her decision to be an independent lightly, the book's teaser notes. Referencing the tumultuous 3 weeks leading up to President Biden's withdrawal from the 2024 election. The narrative uncovers feelings of betrayal within the Democratic Party, suggesting a disillusionment that resonates with many voters. Jean-Pierre's tenure as press secretary was marked by her groundbreaking role as the first Black woman and openly LGBTQ+ individual to hold the position. Her departure from the party adds to a growing trend of political figures questioning the efficacy of strict party loyalty. As a history maker, veteran public servant, political analyst, and independent thinker, she urges Americans to think outside of the blue and red box. The book's summary emphasizes, hinting at a broader call for political evolution. Simultaneously in Texas, U.S. Representative Jasmine Crockett is stepping into the spotlight, entering the race for the top Democratic position on the powerful House Oversight Committee. This vacancy arose following the recent death of Congressman Gerry Connolly, creating a competitive environment as multiple candidates vie for the role. Crockett, a rising star within the party, views this as an opportunity to redefine Democratic messaging, asserting that the party's achievements have often been overshadowed. Our work cannot be solely reactive. We must also be strategic in laying the groundwork to win back the House majority, she emphasized in her pitch to colleagues. Crockett's candidacy is marked by her focus on effective communication of Democratic values, particularly as she critiques the party's past struggles to claim credit for significant legislative victories. Her experience as a public defense attorney and political activist has equipped her with a unique perspective, enabling her to connect with constituents on pressing issues. However, her path has not been without controversy. She faced backlash earlier this year for using a derogatory term to describe Texas Governor Greg Abbott, which serves as a reminder of the scrutiny public figures face in the digital age. As both Jean-Pierre and Crockett navigate their respective political journeys, their choices reflect a broader sentiment among voters who are increasingly disenchanted with traditional party lines. With the landscape shifting, the implications of their actions may extend far beyond their immediate circles. The growing movement towards independent thought in politics could signal a significant realignment in voter behavior heading into the next election cycle. Looking ahead, the political climate will likely continue to evolve as more individuals challenge the status quo. Jean-Pierre's call for independence and Crockett's push for strategic Democratic messaging underscore an urgent need for adaptability in a time when public trust is waning. As these narratives unfold, they will shape the discourse around the future of American democracy and the role of political parties within it. As the political landscape in the United States continues to evolve in the wake of Donald Trump's presidency, one figure remains a focal point: Senator Susan Collins of Maine. Eyeing her sixth term in the Senate, Collins finds herself navigating a complex web of pressures from both her party and the opposition. With a challenging re-election campaign on the horizon, her political future may hinge on her ability to balance the competing demands of an increasingly polarized electorate. Collins's tenure, which began in 1996, has long been characterized by a reputation for bipartisanship. However, the current political climate, marked by heightened loyalty to Trump within the Republican Party, is forcing her to reassess her position. In 2020, she managed to secure re-election despite a vocal opposition campaign, but her support base is shifting. Voters, including some who once championed her as a moderate, are expressing discontent, particularly regarding her alignment with Trump's policies and rhetoric. In the lead-up to the November 2026 midterm elections, Collins faces not only Republican challengers such as Carmen Calabrese and Daniel Smariglio, but also an independent candidate, Philip Wrench, who brings notable credentials as a former SpaceX engineer. With two Democratic candidates, Jordan Wood and Natasha Alcala, also vying for the seat. The political stakes are high. These challengers are leveraging their platforms to appeal to voters disillusioned with what they perceive as Collins' failure to adequately oppose Trump. Collins has highlighted her record of securing federal funding for various projects across Maine, claiming that her seniority in the Senate has enabled her to deliver significant financial benefits to her constituents. By climbing that ladder in the last 3 years, I have been able to secure more than $1 billion for hundreds of projects in communities across our state, Collins stated, emphasizing her role as a powerful appropriator. However, her critics argue that reliance on federal funding is not a sustainable model for Maine's economic future. Wrench advocates for a more independent approach, focusing on building local economies and addressing the so-called brain drain as young professionals leave the state for opportunities elsewhere. Similarly, Wood emphasizes his commitment to anti-corruption reform and reducing the influence of money in politics, positioning himself as a candidate for change. The ideological divisions within the Republican Party complicate Collins's situation. While some party members, including her primary challengers, urge her to align more closely with Trump, others express concerns about the implications of Trump's policies on fiscal responsibility. Musk's recent criticism of Trump's spending bill, which aims to provide large tax breaks and increased defense spending, has intensified debates within the GOP about the party's direction and priorities. Musk's vocal opposition to Trump's proposals has raised alarms among Republicans, as many fear that disenchantment among party loyalists could jeopardize their chances in upcoming elections. In a recent social media post, Musk referred to Trump's bill as a disgusting abomination, a stark departure from his previous support for the former president. His comments could embolden budget-conscious Republicans in the Senate while simultaneously alienating those who are loyal to Trump. For Collins, the precarious balancing act of maintaining her moderate persona while appeasing the more conservative factions of her party is becoming increasingly challenging. Polls indicate that her approval ratings are dipping, with significant portions of both Democratic and Republican voters expressing dissatisfaction with her performance. A recent survey found that 81% of voters who supported Kamala Harris in the 2024 election believe Collins aligns too closely with Trump, while a majority of Trump supporters feel she does not support him enough. As she prepares for her upcoming campaign, Collins must navigate these conflicting pressures while articulating a vision that resonates with a diverse electorate. The political climate in Maine reflects a broader national trend, where candidates who once thrived on bipartisanship now face increasing scrutiny and demands for ideological purity from their party bases. Looking ahead, the next 18 months will be crucial for Collins as she seeks to reaffirm her relevance in a party that is rapidly changing. Whether she can sustain her campaign's focus on delivering for Maine while maintaining her independence from the divisive politics of the Trump era remains to be seen. As the election approaches, the stakes will only grow higher, making Collins's ability to adapt and respond to the evolving political landscape a key factor in her quest for re-election. As the political landscape shifts in the United States, the tension within the Senate over environmental policy and campaign strategies is coming to a head. Recent developments have underscored the growing divide between Democratic and Republican lawmakers, particularly regarding climate change initiatives and funding allocations. This clash has significant implications for both legislative agendas and the upcoming elections. In the latest round of negotiations, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat, Rhode Island ranking member of the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works, criticized the newly released Republican reconciliation bill, stating, "This bill is every bit the betrayal of American families we knew it would be." Whitehouse's remarks highlight a pervasive concern among Democrats that the new legislation, which proposes rescinding the methane emissions fee and weakening auto emissions standards, will lead to increased energy prices and deteriorating air quality. He added that the bill appears to be a favor to fossil fuel industry donors. calling it a pay-to-play scheme that could exacerbate climate change. This sentiment reflects a broader Democratic strategy to rally public opinion against what they perceive as a capitulation to corporate interests at the expense of the environment. Simultaneously, a Senate panel is seeking to cut unspent funds earmarked for climate and clean energy initiatives. This move has raised alarms among environmental advocates who argue that the reduction in funding could hinder the nation's transition to cleaner energy sources. With the potential rollback of financial support for climate initiatives, the future of U.S. environmental policy hangs in the balance as both parties position themselves for the upcoming electoral cycle. On another front, the political maneuvering extends to the campaign arena, where Senator Mike Braun's federal campaign committee has transitioned into an independent political action committee PAC. This shift indicates a strategic pivot as Braun positions himself ahead of the electoral landscape, which is becoming increasingly competitive. The decision to convert his campaign committee reflects a growing trend among politicians to adapt to the changing dynamics of fundraising and voter engagement in an era characterized by heightened scrutiny and partisanship. As these developments unfold, the implications for both environmental policy and electoral strategies are profound. The increasing polarization in Congress suggests that significant legislative progress on climate change may be stymied, particularly as both parties prepare for a tightly contested election cycle. Observers are keenly watching how these tensions will influence voter sentiment and whether bipartisan efforts can emerge in the face of stark ideological divides. Looking ahead, the outcomes of these disputes will be crucial in shaping not only the legislative agenda but also the political fortunes of key players in the Senate. With pressing environmental issues at stake and the potential for significant electoral repercussions, the coming months will be pivotal in determining the future direction of both U.S. policy and the political landscape. As the nation grapples with these challenges, the stakes could not be higher for lawmakers and constituents alike. In a significant turn of events, the U.S. House of Representatives has passed a sweeping domestic policy bill known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which has stirred both support and regret among Republican lawmakers. This $895 billion legislation aims to advance key priorities of the Trump administration, including tax cuts, increased defense spending, and a rollback of Biden-era climate initiatives. However, the hurried nature of its passage has left some lawmakers questioning their votes just days after the bill cleared the floor by a narrow margin. The House approved the bill on May 22, 2025, after a lengthy debate that culminated in a vote decided by just one ballot. While the immediate reaction among Republicans was one of relief, this sentiment quickly shifted to regret as several representatives expressed surprise over provisions they had not fully understood. Representative Mike Flood of Nebraska admitted at a town hall meeting that he was unaware the bill would limit judges' powers to hold individuals in contempt for violating court orders. Similarly, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia revealed she did not realize the legislation would block states from regulating artificial intelligence for a decade, stating on social media, "I would have voted no if I had known this was in there." The rapid development and passage of such a massive piece of legislation highlight the challenges of modern governance, where lawmakers often find themselves voting on bills that are extensive and complex with little time to digest the contents. "You know, it's hard to read over 1,000 pages when things keep changing up to the last minute before we voted on it," Greene lamented. This sentiment reflects a broader issue within Congress, where partisan divisions often lead to large omnibus bills that combine numerous policy measures, making it difficult for legislators to fully comprehend the implications of their votes. Adding to the tension surrounding the bill is Elon Musk's public criticism. The billionaire entrepreneur described the legislation as massive, outrageous, pork-filled, and called for accountability among those who supported it. His remarks resonated with Republican fiscal hawks who had initially backed the bill but are now concerned about its potential impact on the federal debt. Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee expressed hope that the Senate would implement significant cuts to improve the legislation before it returns to the House. As it stands, the bill now moves to the Senate, where its fate will be determined. Notably, it did not include funding for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative USAI for the upcoming fiscal year, a move that has raised eyebrows amidst ongoing discussions about U.S. support for Ukraine. Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. Oksana Markarova has been vocal in advocating for the reintroduction of the Ukraine Democracy Defense Lend-Lease Act, which facilitates arms loans to Ukraine. But this provision was absent from the defense spending bill that passed simultaneously. The political landscape remains uncertain, particularly regarding future U.S. support for Ukraine, as President-elect Donald Trump has suggested a potential reduction in assistance. The lack of provisions for Ukraine in this latest defense spending bill underscores the shifting priorities within Congress and the ongoing debate over the extent of U.S. involvement in foreign conflicts. As the Senate prepares to debate the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the divisions within the Republican Party could lead to further amendments and potentially alter its trajectory. With a fractured consensus on critical issues and competing priorities, the coming weeks will be crucial in determining the bill's final form and the implications for both domestic policy and international relations. In conclusion, the events following the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act reveal the complexities and challenges of contemporary governance. As lawmakers navigate the intricate landscape of policymaking, the scrutiny of their decisions will likely intensify, prompting calls for greater transparency and accountability. The outcome of this legislation will not only shape the Trump administration's domestic agenda but also set the tone for future legislative battles as Congress grapples with pressing issues at home and abroad. In a significant move aimed at bolstering national security, President Donald J. Trump has announced a proclamation restricting the entry of foreign nationals from designated countries deemed to pose potential threats to the United States. Published on June 4, 2025. The proclamation outlines specific countries that will face either full or partial suspensions on immigration and non-immigrant admissions. This decision follows a comprehensive review of the visa vetting processes and security protocols associated with these nations, emphasizing the administration's ongoing commitment to safeguarding American interests. The foundation of this proclamation lies in Executive Order 14161 issued earlier this year, which established a policy focused on protecting U.S. citizens from individuals intending to commit terrorist acts or undermine national security. In his proclamation, Trump stated, "It is the policy of the United States to protect its citizens from aliens who intend to commit terrorist attacks, threaten our national security, espouse hateful ideology, or otherwise exploit the immigration laws for malevolent purposes." This sentiment reflects a continuation of the administration's previous efforts to tighten immigration controls, which had previously been upheld by the Supreme Court. The Department of State conducted a thorough assessment of countries that exhibited deficiencies in their visa screening and vetting processes. As a result, the proclamation identifies 12 nations facing full entry suspensions, including Afghanistan, Iran, and Libya, among others, citing their inadequate governance and cooperation in managing immigration laws. For instance, the Taliban's control over Afghanistan has led to a lack of competent authority for issuing passports and civil documents, exacerbating security concerns. In addition to the full suspensions, the proclamation also imposes partial restrictions on 7 countries, including Cuba and Venezuela, which have been labeled as state sponsors of terrorism. Each of these nations has demonstrated a historical failure to comply with U.S. immigration protocols, raising alarms over potential risks associated with admitting their nationals. The implications of these restrictions are far-reaching. By limiting the entry of nationals from these countries, the administration aims to mitigate the risks of visa overstays and potential security threats. According to the fiscal year 2023 Department of Homeland Security entry/exit overstay report, countries such as Chad and Haiti have displayed alarmingly high overstay rates, with Chad reporting a staggering B1/B2 visa overstay rate of over 49%. The proclamation underscores the administration's determination to address these challenges, stating that the United States must ensure that admitted aliens and aliens otherwise already present in the United States do not bear hostile attitudes toward its citizens, culture, government institutions, or founding principles. However, The move has sparked a robust debate about the broader implications for U.S. immigration policy and international relations. Critics argue that such blanket restrictions may hinder genuine refugees and those seeking asylum from oppressive regimes. The administration has acknowledged the need for exceptions which will allow certain individuals, including lawful permanent residents and dual nationals, to enter the U.S. under specific conditions. These exceptions aim to strike a balance between national security concerns and humanitarian considerations. Looking ahead, the administration has committed to ongoing evaluations of the listed countries, with the Secretary of State required to report on the status of these restrictions every 180 days. This proactive approach indicates that the U.S. is not only focused on immediate security concerns but is also willing to engage with other nations to improve their information sharing and identity management capabilities. As the global landscape continues to evolve, the ramifications of this proclamation will unfold in real time, potentially reshaping U.S. immigration policy and diplomatic relations. The effectiveness of these measures in enhancing national security while adhering to American values of openness and humanitarianism remains to be seen, but the administration's resolve to prioritize the safety of its citizens is unmistakable.